Hey kids, welcome to Unit 2, Lesson 8, Mutator Methods, number 5. The customer class represents a customer of the Project Mercury Pastries food truck. It has an instance variable called customer dessert for the customer's dessert. In customer.java, write the method modify dessert to use the scanner input to modify the dessert flavor or price. Stuck? Look at the pseudocode and show me how to help you out. In myconsole.java, we're going to instantiate a scanner object and use it to test your modify dessert method. Looks like this is what the output should look like. And we have our little show me how. We're going to try to do it without looking at this code. Let's take a look at our My Console. This looks just like what I've been working with that we talked about last lesson, except now we have this new object My Customer, which is equal to a new customer, and inside it we have My Dessert. And that looks like the My Dessert from up here. Let's take a minute and look at this image here. You can see the object we're instantiating here, My Customer. And what My Dessert is referencing is that above object from the dessert class, My Dessert. Really, you can think of this almost as My Customer, My Dessert, or My Customer Flavor and Price. And since accessor methods and mutator methods are meant to be used out of class, that's why we write the method public, so we have access to not only get the current flavor, but also the price. On top of that, for those two parameters, we can also set the flavor and set the price. That's a pretty neat way of using a parameterized constructor. And I'm pretty sure understanding how all of these work together is going to help me complete this project. After that, it looks like we're printing off the My Dessert flavor and the My Dessert get price method. Over in customer, it looks like we're importing our scanner class. We have a public class customer. It has one private instance variable, customer dessert. And this has one argument to be passed, and that is the dessert argument, which has two parameters, and those are going to be stored as a new variable, new dessert. That means customer dessert is really going to be equal to price and flavor. Next, we have the method signature, public void modify dessert. We have a scanner input. And then it looks 5b, which we'll do in a separate video, goes down here. Finally, we have our dessert class. And this looks just like we've written. We have our mutator methods right here. And this is actually what we're accessing outside a class, the set flavor, set price. With our thoughts with this in mind, let's start writing it. So again, remember this graphic. Remember, we have access to two things, the flavor and the price. And we can change two things, the flavor and the price. And also remember, My Dessert really equals flavor and price as a parameter. Before we start, let's run. And we can see our output here was from before. So we got the flavor and price, then we changed the flavor and price, and then we're putting it off down here again. And what we have to do is similar to what we did in the previous exercise, where we entered one for size, one for price. we're going to do nearly the same thing for this one. That really means if you get stuck, go back to exercise 2, look at the modify close method that we wrote, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty close to this one. Let's go ahead and write it. If we look down here, we can see they want the output to be enter 1 for flavor or 2 for price. And then it looks like we have this or -1 to quit. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. If we're taking a user input, it looks like we're waiting for a user to input something, and that's usually a while statement. And it looks like we're going to need 1, 2, ultimately 3 choices for this. And you can see one's going to be positive, one's going to be a negative set of numbers. And because I have numbers, I'm going to have to create a variable to store that. I'm going to create an integer because it's going to be a whole number. I'm going to name it choice. And I'm just going to set it to 0 initially. Don't forget your semicolon. Now I need to get an input, and I need a user to loop around as many times as they want. And because I don't know how many times that is, that usually means I need a while statement. And if we look down there, I said we had positive and negative numbers, and it says to quit -1. That means as long as we're inputting a positive number, we should keep looping around. That means while choice is greater than or equal to 0, we want some loop to happen. And what do we want to happen? Well, first, we want to ask the user, enter 1 for flavor or 2 for price. Let's write that out first. So system.out.print, and then we're going to go enter 1 for flavor or 2 for price. And then we got this little part in here that says or -1 to quit. Do a colon, a space, and don't forget your semicolon. That's going to print off. Now we need to do our scanner class because we need to accept an input, right? I think I'm going to create my object first. And down here you can see here's a place to instantiate our scanner class. And it's going to be of the scanner class. We're going to call it input. It's going to equal a new scanner. And its parameter is it is going to take a system input or a keyboard input. Now we have our new object input, which we can store information. Let's go back to our customer class. Now we're just getting an integer, 0 or 1 or 2 or whatever. And we want our choice now to be equal to whatever the input is we just created, so whatever the user inputs. And do you remember this line of code from a couple lessons ago? Our next int. This will store whatever the integer is and then go to the next line. We're just going to write next int. Now that we converted that, we have to advance the scanner past the current line and return the input. And this method pretty much returns the rest of the line, including anything there. And we're just going to write input.nextLine. Let's bunch up some parentheses here real quick. Give us a little room there. Within this while statement, we have 2 different conditions we have to meet here now. 1 is for flavor, 2 is for price. If the choice is currently at greater than 0, which is the initial value, it's going to run this line. If they hit 1, what are they going to get an output of? Let's write that. If choice equal 1, what do we want to happen? First, we want to tell the user, right now, you want to change the flavor. So we want to say enter a new flavor. So let's do system.out.print and then enter a new flavor. And we want to have them be able to enter a new flavor. We have to store that information. Well, choice is already storing something, so we have to create a new variable. And flavor is a string, so it's going to be a string variable. And it's going to be a new flavor, right? So we can just call it flavor. And flavor is going to input whatever that next line is. So this one is just going to read everything on this line and just hit return. No need to convert it to anything else. Oh, we got a spelling error over here. And that shouldn't be like that. All right. Creating a new variable flavor, and it is just storing whatever the user is inputting after we hit enter a new flavor. Once we get a new flavor, what are we going to do with it? Well, remember back to that graphic. We have access to set flavor. Why don't we just set the flavor is to whatever that flavor? How can we do that? Well, what object do we want to set? Well, we're right now in the customer dessert object, right? What method do we want to call? We want to call the set flavor method. And what do we want to do? We want to update the flavor. Well, that's it. Now there is one more part of the scanner class we are forgetting. And that is we need to close it. And you remember this line of code, input.close? Well, that's very important. We have to be right outside the main method. So we just need to put input.close, just like that. Let's test out our code and see what happens here. Let's go back to my console. We've already instantiated an object, and we already have a print method already written for it. Unless we have any errors, this should run. Let's see if we're right. The program ran. We didn't get any options. Why didn't we get any options? Well, kids, we didn't call our method, but we didn't get any errors, so that's good. What are we going to call? Well, we're under my customer, right? And the method we just wrote was modify dessert. And the input is our variable or parameter we're passing in, because that's our scanner class. Let's hit run. Now we should get the ability to enter. Oh, we got a spelling error. Modify. Well, let's run it again. Enter 1 for flavor, 2 for price. That's good. If we hit 1, we should get our additional option, new flavor. They look like they have oatmeal. Let's put oatmeal. Hit run. Let's hit -1 to get outside of our statement. And look, it changed from coconut to oatmeal. Yet our get price call didn't change at all. Pretty neat. We're not done yet, kids. That is only flavor. We got to do price. That's choice 1. Choice 2 will be very similar. If choice equal 2, we want to ask a question, right? We're going to do system.out.print, and let's do enter a new price. Just like that. This time, we don't need a string flavor, we're doing a price. A price is a double. So our new variable is going to be a double, and it's going to be called price. And what we want to do is we want to get the input from the user. And this time we don't want to do next int. We want to do next double. We're going to write that input dot next double, just like that. What we do is we have to store it. And this time we want to access the dessert price. So we want that set price method we wrote. And this time we want price, or the price variable, we passed along to that set price method. Now when I run, and if I hit 2, I should be able to change the price. Let's see if that happens. Let's set the flavor first to oatmeal. And then let's set the price to $7.60. That's an expensive dessert, kids. Now let's exit out, -1. And you can see our original object from my dessert, which was a coconut and $1.75, changed to a strawberry at $6.50, and then an oatmeal at $7.60. And we did that through our accessor and mutator methods. Pretty neat how we can use those outside of our class. Key takeaways from this lesson, kids, is really understanding this principle of encapsulation in Java. And the way I always like to think about it is a read-write method. Within the main class we set read-only access. And then through our getter and setter methods, or accessor or mutators, we can write information to those different classes. But yet we don't change the initial class. And that really is the entire idea of encapsulation, which is one of the fundamental principles of Java. And to really understand this lesson, and probably why you're here, is really to understand this graphic. And through this, we can use our get and set methods to actually change an object outside of its class. In this lesson, we created a new customer object called myCustomer, and it had a parameter myDessert, which was another object. MyDessert had 2 parameters, coconut and $1.75. That really means myCustomer was really myCustomer flavor price. But it was flavor and price for that myDessert object we created earlier. Because we gave these public accessor and public mutator methods, we could change or manipulate that myDessert object. So for this customer, their dessert ended up being oatmeal that cost $7.60. And just remember how we saw those variables or numbers were through accessor methods, and how we changed those were through mutator methods. And kids, if you get this, you're really getting Java. Hopefully this video helped you understand mutator methods a little better. As always, kids, if you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next lesson. See you later, kids. Bye, bye, bye.